like to welcome you to the African American Heritage Month African American Authors Program. As you know, working with Mayor Eric Garcetti, we have had the privilege of working with numerous authors in the African American community. And today is no exception in terms of the individuals who have written books that we all want to know a little bit more about. And so as we begin our program, just for those of you who already know who they are and those who haven't been around and to know who they are, they should know. But it is my pleasure to let you know that we have with us actor Todd Bridges, who, as you remember from Different Strokes. Also to my right, Kim Coles. You remember Kim Coles? Living Single, right? Living Single. And also Yvette Heyliger. And she is a playwright in New York, but she might look familiar to you because her sister works right here in the city of Los Angeles. And by the way, they are identical twins. So in case you thought it was Yvonne, it is not, it is Yvette. Also, a young man who we met a long time ago who has been a writer, but more importantly than that, he's written several books. He, in addition to the work that he does in terms of writing, he also has founded the Films Critic Association, which is responsible for analyzing various movie parts, roles, and messages that movies send to the public. And so we're very proud to have, he works with our Author Study Club on numerous projects as well. We're very proud to have Gil Robertson. And with that, I would like to tell you that our Author Study Club, which is a chapter of the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, is a chapter of that club whose purpose is to help to promote African American history, and it is for every American to understand the positive contributions that African Americans have made to society. It was very important for me to find out when I got here with Mayor Eric Garcetti back in 2013 that they began this effort in 1949. And I thought to myself, wow, my parents didn't even know each other then, nor were they in college even in 1949. So these women, most of whom are women, have been working on this project for many years, and we have honored, as you know, several legends over the years of even Mayor Garcetti's tenure, from Lionel Richie to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to Johnny Mathis, and recently we honored this year in our opening ceremonies Dionne Warwick, as you see to my left, the poster there. So we have been fortunate to continue the legacy of making sure that we promote the contributions that African Americans have made to society. And with that, it is my privilege to introduce to you the president of our Author Study Club, Ernestine Gordon.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you so much. One of the things that I find most exciting and thrilling and important about tonight is the fact that, just bear with me, to go back in history when it was against the law for blacks to even know how to learn to read, to be taught to read, and or write. And then, and we won't go into all the other stuff, and then we had a period in which we had Phyllis Wheatley, who was taught to read, and a famous poet, and then Carter G. Woodson in 1915 decided, with some of his other colleagues, said, you know, we need to write down our history. And so he started the publishing company, the Association for the Study of Negro History. And of course you know that he was the father of Black Negro History Week back in 1926. So he's just the one who took that step and stood out. but he's not the only one that had that same concept, that same interest, that same interest. And so I really think it's very important for us to realize that we're here in City Hall, that with our authors, significant writings, it's history. They will be part of this history of our 2018 Evening with the Authors. So it's really very important. We need to remember that writing, math, and is very important, and we need to keep that going. I also want to give a plug out for Write in America. It's a display on the bridge. And the reason I wanted to say that is because a gentleman by the name of Jefferson Lewis Edmond was enslaved, and because of the Emancipation Proclamation, he was freed, and he migrated from Mississippi to Los Angeles and started what they called the Liberator. It was a newspaper. And so this person who had been enslaved came here, started a newspaper. So that tells you this man was intelligent, period, you know? And so I am really pleased that these gentlemen and women are here to share their book with us, their books with us, and we thank you for taking the time to share, and we really appreciate you coming. Thank you.
With that, it is my honor to introduce young people who often have been not necessarily included in the things that we do. And when we do our programs, we always honor legends and those who've made positive contribution in media and literary work to that end. But we also try to, in our African American Heritage Month programs, present the next generation. And today, it is my privilege to introduce to you a young lady who is a college student. And I want to read to you her background. And she is a performing artist, and you know I'm a big advocate of performing artists. And her name is Tatiana Marie Tate, and she plays the trumpet and has been playing trumpet since the age of 7, and also plays drums, trombone, and is learning the bass guitar. She'll be in the 12th grade this fall and attends Long Beach Polytechnical High School. There she's a part of their Grammy Signature Music Program. She plays trumpet in their prestigious a jazz band soloist, and Poly Jazz Combo 3. She's in the Symphonic Winds Orchestra and is a drum major of the 2016-17 Poly High School Marching Unit, and achieved honors as an outstanding soloist in several festivals and competitions statewide. Tatiana is also a part of the Colburn School Conservatory, the jazz big band there, and also serves as a praise and worship leader at the World Christian Fellowship of Long Beach. She has a 4.2 GPA and has been recognized by the Long Beach School District both for her academic talent and musical ability. Tatiana was chosen as one of a small group of students to represent her school district as cultural ambassadors traveling to Japan in July of 2016. She plans to attend university in the fall of 2017 and get a master's degree in composition. This must be an old resume, Tatiana. Is it an older one? That's what I thought. That's what I started out saying. And so you're at California State University, Fulton, is that correct? She is a student at California State University, Fulton. Ladies and gentlemen, give her a round of applause as she presents her musical talent. Let's hear it for Tatiana Marie Tate. It is my privilege to introduce to you Kilpatrick Tyler, who's the South Los Angeles representative for the office of Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Good evening. Great to see all of your wonderful faces this evening. The African American Heritage Month celebration has been phenomenal. I don't know how many of the events you've had the opportunity to attend, but hopefully you've enjoyed it as much as we have enjoyed putting it on for the community. Tonight I am here just to bring greetings and words on behalf of Mayor Eric Garcetti. One, to share how important we know that the literary tradition is to the African experience in America. When we lift up names like Zora Neale Hurston, when we talk about names like Langston Hughes, Carter G. Woodson, we know that it became important for us to write and tell our own stories. So there's an old saying that says that until the lion tells its story, the hunter will always be considered the hero. And so we know that when we allowed other folks to tell our story, that oftentimes we were not positively projected, and that the way that we looked did not do justice to who we were as a people. And so when we look at all of our wonderful panelists that will share how they were inspired and what it was that made them want to tell the story of our people and our experience, I think we can't do anything but celebrate. Wouldn't you agree?
That's right.
And so on behalf of the mayor, we want to say welcome. We want to say thank you to our Author Study Club, as well as to Commissioner Davis for all of your hard work and dedication in putting on this whole month of events. We encourage you to participate in all of the events that are left over, as well as to visit the wonderful exhibit that has been set up by CD10 as you leave the building or as you find yourself here at City Hall. But most of all, that not only would we celebrate African American heritage, but we would continue to be history and heritage makers. And so on behalf of Mayor Eric Garcetti and the city family, we want to say thank you, God bless you, and welcome.
In the Little Miss African American pageant in our city, they teach young women from the African American community to embrace their confidence and awareness and pride, better known as their cap, wear their cap. And so we have been involved with many of these young women in our various public programs, and today the first runner-up of that scholarship pageant has a poem that she'd like to share for you on this special occasion of African American Heritage Month. Please welcome Ms. Joelle Topping.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to be in a room with all of you. Thank you. There was a time where we were forbidden to be ourselves, and instead, we were sold to somebody else. Now, on the outside, we looked at hearing, but on the inside, we were just plain fearing. Fear. Fear silenced our voice. But now, we have a choice. We can ask the questions and learn the lessons. Like, if all lives matter, then why are we still stereotyped by the color of each other's skin? It did not end January 1st, 1863, when President Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation. But now, we stand strong, ending segregation that lasted way too long. Though there is still more to be improved, there is nothing, there is nothing that we cannot do. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joelle. And with that, it is my honor to start our discussion today with our authors. As you know from your program, each of them have written books. And today we want to delve a little into some of the reasons why they wrote the book, but first we want to understand a little bit about each of our authors in terms of how they were able to evolve to be authors today. As you know, Todd Bridges' book is Killing Willis, From Different Strokes to the Mean Streets, okay, to the Life I Always Wanted. Kim Cole's book, Open Your Gifts, 22 Lessons on Finding and Embracing Our Personal Power. And Yvette, Heyliger, What a Piece of Work is Man, full-length plays for leading women. And Gill, Robertson, Family Affair, What It Means to Be African American Today. I want to start off in terms of us getting an opportunity very briefly to understand how each of our authors got involved in the work that they're involved in today. I know that Yvette, to my far left, is involved as a playwright. And can you just briefly share with our audience how you got involved and how you were able to develop into a playwright?
When I started acting many years ago, there weren't really many roles for my type. We had Diane Carroll, who had done Julia, but there was a big gap, and then came the 60s and 70s, and black women were, you know, long-suffering welfare mothers, hookers, drug addicts. There weren't really any roles that were representing us. You know, we didn't have the mistress of the President of the United States on Scandal. We didn't have the lawyer on How to Get Away with Murder. We weren't playing those roles. So there was a double thing. There was me trying to write the things that were in my heart to say. At that time, it was about race and beauty in America. Our young lady who talked a little bit about color in her poem, you know, the whole color issue within the black community, I also had to struggle with on the other side. And so I wanted to write a play about race and beauty, and that was my first play. So I just really looking to tackle issues of importance to the black community within my work, and just so happened started writing roles for my quote-unquote type, you know, and that's pretty much how I started.
Okay, great. Todd, what about you? How did you get involved in the acting world?
I started when I was 5.
How did that happen?
When I started in San Francisco on a show called Streets of San Francisco. And then once I moved from there and I came to LA, I instantly started working. I would get jobs that white people kids were supposed to get.
Oh.
Just how it was for me, I guess. But how I ended up writing this book was because I got tired of people telling my story. And I wanted to tell the truth, exactly what it was all about and what happened and why I went that direction. Okay. You know, and I wanted to, if it can help people, that's what I really wanted. If it can help somebody not have to go through that, if they're dealing with those kind of emotions and issues and you don't want to go through that, then there's a different way about it, and that wasn't the right route. So,
Great.
that's about it.
And what about you, Kim? I know you've been acting for quite a long time. When did you start, and how did you get started?
Okay, I started, hello everybody, hello, good evening. I started out as a stand-up comedian, but actually I really started, I watched a lot of the great comedians on TV in the 70s and late 60s. Everyone from Flip Wilson and Richard Pryor and Mr. Bill Cosby, yes, Mr. Bill Cosby, and Carol Burnett and Ruth Buzzy and all the women as well. And just not really understanding what that was, but wanting to do that. And long story short, when I got to, okay, so the Fame High School, you know, the movie Fame, that's a real place. And I didn't know how I was going to do this thing that I saw on TV, but I thought if I went to the Fame School, by the way, it was called the High School of Music and Art, right? And you had to actually audition to get in. And I auditioned to go to high school, oh my goodness. And I remember going down and standing and getting in line, and all of the Broadway kids were there, and like they were vocalizing me, 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 me. funny. The sun will come out tomorrow. Like, they were like professional kids. And I was just a girl from Brooklyn who kind of wanted to be funny. And I thought this was my place. And I chickened out and I left because I was like, I don't belong. And I ended up going to another high school that you had to take a test to get in. I was like, if I can't use my talent, let me use my brain. And it turned out to be the best place for me to be because it was a specialized high school for smart kids. How I got in, I'll never know. But I was able to find my way and be funny and weird and goofy. And had I gone to the high school for the performing arts, I would have been a small fish in a big pond. And at this place with, pocket protectors, and they were all brainiacs. That's a terrible word, but that's what we used to say. I could stand out. And so being funny, my first routine was, Roots was on when I was in high school, and I would go to school every day and do a medley of what had happened the night before. And I ended up having like a 10-minute routine, but my name is Kunta Kinte, your name is Toby. I mean, down to them being released, and it was the thing. I found my voice, and so I started as a stand-up comedian. That led to auditioning for iconic shows like Living Single. Oh, I should say Living Color first, and then Living Single, and then onward and onward.
Wonderful.
Long
Jill,
story.
how did you get started?
I figured that if people knew my byline, it would be easier for me to get a book deal. And so I started writing for a lot of different magazines based on the East Coast and became sort of like a go-to person for publications like Vibe and Essence and Black Enterprise. And so over the course of time, I've written, like 50 national covers and for the LA Times and the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And that path really kind of took me away from what my passion really was, which was to write books. And so in 2003, I finally started 1999, I started finding my way back to that and did my first book, which was Writing as a Tool of Empowerment, which was a self-published book to help other aspiring journalists who wanted to pursue careers in A&E journalism. And that led to Not in My Family, which dealt with my family's journey, or with all of our family's journeys in dealing with HIV and AIDS. My brother had been living with the disease is still living with the disease 35 years later. And that book was very successful and led to this book, Family Affair. It was around the time that Obama had gotten elected, and so I was really curious as to how that influenced what we thought of ourselves. And so, we put this collection together, and it was a pick of the week with Publishers Weekly, its first week out, and it was nominated for an Image Award and did well commercially. And that was followed by my third anthology, Where Did Our Love Go?, which delves into the state of Black love in this country. And so the books have been cool because they sort of follow where I'm at, what I'm curious about. And so my current title is actually my first children's book, which deals with, again, was inspired by Obama, and it's an introduction for young adult readers to the next generation of African Americans in politics. And so real excited about that. It's real cool to be able to influence minds as they're forming instead of books like this one, which are for adults. And my next anthology will probably look at death and dying. Okay. So, so it's cool. It's cool. It's been a nice, it's nice always to step into this away from my other job.
Great. As we look at the various books that each of you are presenting to us today, they appear obviously to be different in many ways. And so what I'd like to know is that for each book, as authors, can you share with us what the message is in the book that you have written, that you have presented? And I know we'll start with Todd. Killing Willis, From Different Strokes
Don't
to
do
the
crack.
Mean Streets of the Life I Always Wanted. So what's the message?
The message is that no matter what you go through, no matter how much turmoil your life becomes because of other hands of other people, that you still got to make sure you do the right thing.
What would you say has been the biggest challenge you had professionally as an actor?
Being black.
Being black.
Yes.
And as you talk about the experience of having confrontation with things that have deterred you from your goal, obviously substance abuse is.
But it wasn't as long as everyone thought it was. It was 4 years. People thought it was longer.
I see.
But I got in 4 years of big bad trouble, that's for sure. That wasn't good.
I see. And so overall, the message in your book is, again, what would you say again?
The message is, okay, if you go through child molestation, if you go through constant police harassment from 12 years old all the way to 20, you have a father who's an alcoholic and abusive to your mother, and that's what you're seeing all the time on a regular basis. The message would be probably that no matter what you go through in life, there always is a light at the end of the door. But you can't take a shortcut. A shortcut does not work. A shortcut will end you up like I did. You have to go straight.
Reflecting back on that experience and thinking about some of the encounters that you were involved in, do you think that you were self-medicating yourself in terms of the interaction you had with the drug abuse to some degree? Don't you think?
I was self-medicating with drugs, yes. That's how you start out. No one starts out to get addicted. You start out self-medicating and you end up addicted. Because our parents tell us don't do drugs, and you go, why not? Because they say, because I said so. They don't ever tell us why. I tell my kids the reason why for everything. When you tell them not to do something, you have to give them a reason why not to do something. You can't just say, because I said so. What does that do? That doesn't help us in any way.
When you delivered the message in your book, how did it make you feel after having written it?
Released. Released. You know, I felt like I was, the same me, but I had to release it because, like I said, everyone kept telling my story their way. You watch, you're like, that's not my story. That's terrible. And you have to tell your own story. But it's kind of interesting how, no matter what I've gone through, that I'm the last one alive of the show.
Great.
So that's the way God had it planned. That's how it is, And I'm glad I got away from it early. It was from 21 to 26. And that was it, So thank God, that and then by doing this book, it was a whole release of everything. All my emotions, how I felt about it, what I wanted people to know, and how dangerous, not just the drug, but how dangerous you can become on something that's not you.
Kim, on your book, you have opened your gifts with some periods behind each word. What does gifts stand for in your message, and can you kind of summarize the lessons, if you will?
So, for the record, this is actually book number 3. The first book was called I'm Free, But It'll Cost You, The Single Life According to Kim Coles. The next one was called The Gratitude Journal, because I went through some difficult times, and my drug of choice was shopping. I shopped away all of my money. And I love telling people that the red bottom shoes, when you walk, the red wears off like your wallet is bleeding. No one tells you that. The red wears off like so. So that was my drug of choice. And when I came to terms with a depression that I went through and a difficult time that I went through, I kept asking myself, if I'm not on a TV show, what are my gifts? So I wasn't working. I'd just come off a show that was beloved and still is beloved certainly in our community for sure. When it moved to Hulu, people lost their minds. I got happy because that means another residual check, but I digress. So I lost my mojo, and I went on a quest to go, well, what are my gifts if I'm not on a show? Well, that's not what my gifts are. My gifts are within me. My gifts happen to be love and laughter, and my superpower is seeing gifts in other people. And so I thought I was clever, and I came up with an acronym for gifts, which stands for gratitude, intention, forgiveness, triumphs, and self-love. People always like that. And when you go through the principles, when you explore the principles of being grateful every day for what's already there, even if you think you've got nothing, you're so abundant. Being intentional in the actions that you take, and inspired action, forgiving things that don't matter anymore and creating space for more to come in, being triumphant and looking in the places where you are magnificent, not the places that you're failing, where are you, the bomb.com, is what you should celebrate regularly. And the S is for self-love, which is what it's all about. And so, hi, how are you? Hey. So when I just saw you, Miss Lisa. So when, so I have a lot of the conversation I began to have after coming through this depression and shopping it all away, became about speaking on reminding others to open their gifts.
Great. Gil?
Let me just say,
sure,
by the way,
sure.
this is also an anthology, and because I am passionate about people sharing their story, this is a story of 22 other women sharing they're finding the gifts in the lessons in life, because everything that has happened to you has happened for you to actually heal yourself and heal and help others. So that's what this one's about.
Gil, your work and what it means to be African American today. You say family affair, what it means to be African American today. Can you share for us the message in the book?
Well, I mean, the work is sort of similar to what Yvette was saying earlier about what motivated her to write one of her plays. Identity for black people in this country has always, to some degree in my mind, come with a question mark, about who we are and do we like ourselves, and, the various different elements that are in our backgrounds. And so what this book allowed me to do was, all of the books are kind of written for me. They start off with this concept, and the anthologies have become popular. So people want to participate in that conversation to find the answer. And so it's a collection of stories of people from all walks of life. We have people from Oklahoma who are part of the Blackfoot Indians. We have people who were part of the Cape Verdean community in Rhode Island. We have Louisiana Creoles. We have I really wanted to create a tapestry that represented black culture and black people, and for us to speak to our experiences, to own our identities. And you know what? These contributors bought it. They really came to this book to play. It is my favorite book of the three that have come out. Folks really wrote with a lot of passion. It was a pleasure to edit it. It was a pleasure to get into their minds and to get into their lives and to understand who they are and how they see themselves as African Americans, and watch some of them own it for the first time. So it was a thrill to write it. It really it was. I was glad she told me to do this one instead of,
Thank you.
I was pushing for the children's book because that's the current title, but yeah, this is a terrific piece of work.
Thank you for your work. And Yvette, you say what a piece of work is Man, and full-length plays for leading women. What is the message, would you say, in your work?
I would say that the message in my book is really about empowerment for women playwrights and women writers. I don't know if you all are aware of this, but there is a tremendous lack of parity in the American theater, not just for women playwrights, but directors and designers. We just don't get the opportunities that the men get, plain and simple. And there have been moments when black women have gotten just less than 5% of production opportunities. I live in New York City. We don't really feel the effects of the lack of parity there because there's always some play going on, something's going up, something's coming down, and you don't feel it as much. But when you spread out across the country, you really get to see that women are just not getting the opportunities. So when I set out to write my book, What a Piece of Work is Man, it's a collection of my plays for full-length women. And some of the plays, I think all of them except for one, have been produced right here in Los Angeles. My twin sister and I have our own production company. But what I wanted to do with this book was to say, I am here, I have something to say, and this is the proof. When I'm gone, my book is here. When I'm gone, you'll see what I had to say about HIV and AIDS. You'll see what I had to say about race and beauty in America. I love writing about the White House. I'm so happy that the Obamas left the White House unscathed. You know what I mean? Because, because I didn't have to write about them. But I wrote about the Bush White House and the Clinton White House. Those plays are in my book. So I say that I started out trying to write myself a role as an actress, but then when I became woke and I looked around and saw what was happening in the country, I started tackling much more difficult subjects and difficult subject matter. And so the book is really, you know, if you're looking for a solid piece of work as an actress, or even the leading men in the plays, they're great parts. And it's just my way to say I'm here, I was here, and I want y'all to love what I wrote and read what I wrote and be educated. But I do a lot of education also in the plays that I write. So.
I wanted to ask each of the authors the process in terms of writing a book. Do you sign with one of the big publishing houses, or do you go and pursue an independent book and try to finance it yourself? Was it difficult to write a book as an author? Were there challenges that you confronted as an author?
So I'm happy to say that I've actually had, I don't know if I've had all of the experiences, but I've had the rich experience of the book deal, you know, somebody handing you a check like, this money is mine. Oh, I got to write the book now. And it's a really rich, amazing experience. And then you have to write the book, and then they tell you, my favorite thing in the first book is I wrote the word sister. And the editor was like, well, it's sister, S-I-S-T-E-R. I was like, no, it's not, it's sister. And so I had to educate my editor, who was not Black, about, you know, the way we talk and who we are. And so I've had that experience. And then the second book was self-published. And this book is a hybrid. There are publishers that will work with you. So they have an editor, they have a team, they have a marketing team, but you do the work, and you do, you know, once you've got it, it's yours to promote and do. And I love this process because I get to keep control. The first experience, yes, I had the deal, and yes, I had the, you know, the whole thing, but I didn't have any control over it. And once it was done, and they moved on to their next author. I like that I have this hybrid experience.
That's good.
And yeah, I would do it again and again.
Very
In fact,
informative.
book number 4 is about to go down.
Wonderful.
And the amazing thing is that the money can be the same, because I know the first book that I self-published, we sold about 7,000 copies of that. And then with the AIDS not in my family, that was through a publisher, and the money ended up being about the same. But you controlled, and you know, you got all the money with the, you know, so it's good to have both sides of that experience. It's a different set of challenges.
What about for you, Todd? And
Well, yeah, I could definitely say that. Well, I know when you write a book, when you write it for a big company, they said, oh, it didn't sell that much. You're like, really? Because it's gone. I can't find it anymore. People keep buying it, so you know that it's sold. But they'll tell you it hadn't sold. That's a big companies. That's big companies. They keep all the money. And
so
you just
Kill
get
and
your...
Willis, is it self-published, or is it
No,
with one of the houses?
it's with one of the houses.
Okay.
Houses in New York.
Okay.
And
Do you think in the future you will choose to?
I want to write
self-
another one, and this one's a lot different. This one's actually complete. For 25 years, I've been sober. It's all about that.
Sure.
And it's about how to stay sober and not go back. Because I'm sure everyone thought I would go back, but it just didn't work.
Great.
I fooled you guys, didn't I?
Great. Good for you, Todd.
That wasn't an option, see.
Yvette, what about your experience in publishing?
My experience was similar to Kim's. You know, I'm so used to doing everything by myself. You know, writing the play, putting the play up, getting the money for the play, getting the audience, the butts in the seats. I'm so independent that it didn't really occur to me to go try to get a publishing house to publish my plays. I just decided I was going to do it myself, but I didn't do the vanity press, where you do everything. My situation is like Kim's in that I wrote the book, but I got an editor to look at it, and the publishing company, because they have a stake in your book, they want to have some say about the cover. They want to have some say about the back. They want to have some say about what's in between the pages. They sent me pages and pages of notes of things that I needed to do. So it wasn't vanity press. I call it more a publishing partnership. And that really worked well for me because I felt good that they had a stake in my book, But I also felt good that I was the bottom line. I was the bottom line for my book. But so there was a lot of freedom in walking the thin line. And I think that right now there's a lot of enthusiasm around, I'll call it self-publishing, and that it's really come up. Your book is in bookstores. It can be ordered through the different publishing houses and stuff like that. So I'm enjoying the fruits of a traditional publishing experience, but I'm more in the driver's seat.
Wonderful. So self-publishing, the advantages of that versus being with one of the big Random House or other big houses, the advantages and the disadvantages. And I think one of the takeaways from our discussion is that Gil claims that the money is the same.
Oh, yeah, I know it is. I've witnessed it firsthand.
I see.
Because the most important thing to know when you sign a book contract is that you've got to earn out. If you do not earn out in publishing, you're dead.
Why don't we have questions from the audience? If anyone has a question for our authors, yes, ma'am. You want to stand up, introduce yourself, and ask the question.
What did you do in reference to mentorship? Did you speak with others? Did you have someone that you actually followed or looked to when you were actually writing your book, with the way you outlined it, the way you published it, or anything like that? What do you feel about mentorship in publishing?
Mentorship is definitely important, I think. And I read a lot of different kinds of autobiographies before I did this book. And what I just wanted was the truth. And I was lucky that they let me print the whole truth. And there were things that were like, what does that mean? I'm like, print it, trust me. You know, because I know what it meant. But, you know, some people just didn't know what it meant. And that's the difference when you're telling your story to, I'm not being mean, but to white people, sometimes they don't understand. They can't see that this is going on. We see it every single day, but they can't see it. No one realized that 12 years old, I was getting guns pulled in my head by the police while I was on different drugs. And they were taking my bike and told me I stole it in the valley. That happened for at least 15 years. Guns to my head by them, and they don't realize what they do to a person. So for me, I think my mother was probably the biggest mentor I ever had. My mother, I would say, it definitely is. Because she'll tell it like it is. You know what I mean? And you can't get away with nothing with her. So she'd be like, oh, stop. And she'd be like, okay, I got it. You know, and, you know, so I would say that has been my biggest mentor. Even when I was dealing with this book, talking to her, you know, would help make me feel better so that I can get it all out. Because there were times, you know, you start going through it and you start getting into the thick of it, and you get caught up in it, and you just get, you know, you don't want to work anymore because, you know, you're fizzled, you know what I mean? It's tough. And this kind of book it's tough. If anybody read this, it's tough. It was a tough life for me. People thought I had it easy because I'm on a TV show. Why? No, wasn't. You know, I had to go through a lot to get to where I'm at today. But am I a better person? Heck yeah, I'm a way better person. You know, I'm very down to earth and I'm very humbled, you know, today. And it's a unique thing when you go through something like this and it changes you and you realize that everyone's not bad. Some people are, not everyone. Just because you've had a lot of bad swings and a lot of people mistreated me, it doesn't mean that everybody's bad. You know, and I changed the fathership. Like, I would not be like my father. And I'm a good father because of that. Thank you.
Since Todd mentioned his mom, I just want to say that when my sisters and I were ready to go to, when it was time to go to college, you know, I didn't want to go to college. I just wanted to start as an actor in New York City and just start my career. And if my mother hadn't insisted that I go to college, I never would have discovered I had a talent for writing. And it was in graduate school, actually, that I discovered I had a talent for playwriting. And so when you talk about mentors, but with my book, it's a special situation because it took me a long time to finish the book because there's like 6 plays in here. They all had to be up on their feet, produced with audiences, second productions, me still working on the scripts. So it took me it was more about getting the scripts right for each play after seeing a production than it was the mentoring. But I had to have an editor Could not have done it without an editor, because there are artistic essays in the book to accompany each play. So you learn about my process as a writer while you're reading the plays.
So if there are not any other questions from the audience, or is there one? Oh, great. Commissioner Jackie Hawthorne. I didn't see
Good
you.
evening, everyone.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. I've often heard that there's a book in each of us.
Yes.
And there are many times I think there's a book in me, and I just can't get it together to start. And my question to you is, how did you start? Did you have a muse? Were you channeling somebody? How did you finally know that book was in you and put pen to paper?
You have to just do it.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. You have to just start writing a bunch of notes that make you remember things in your life that you can, when you're talking to somebody, you can bring it up, and we start writing it down together. That's how you just do it. You gotta just do it, like Nike says, just do it.
I would also say to you, I'm so inspired by story that I now help others share their story. I have an online course, and I work with people and sharing their stories. And I would just say, start writing down all of your stories. It doesn't have to be a book yet. It doesn't have to make sense yet. Just what did you love as a child? Who were you as a kid? What influenced you? Who did you look up to? Who affected you in a good way or in a not so good way? Just write down all of your stories, and you will begin to see a theme. You'll begin to see themes. I think themes will begin to pop up. You'll see the best of you. You'll see that there'll be through lines. Wow, I'm really resourceful, or man, I'm really smart, or I make friends really easily. And I know that sounds simple, but these are all themes that I think are a part of you and part of the mosaic, and as you say, the tapestry of you. So just start getting it out. Start remembering things and asking people what you were like and all of that, and it will start to take shape when you're ready.
So which of the four of you would like to go?
I mean, I
You're
can
gonna,
start.
okay,
You can start on
Gil's
this
gonna
side.
give us a flavor. Okay.
I haven't looked at this in a while. I'm going to start off with the foreword and then read a couple of paragraphs from the preface. But one of my best friends, this is on her answering machine, and I thought I should use it to. This was the spirit in which this book was written, was assembled. Got up this morning feeling good and black. Did black things. Played all my black records and minded my own black business. Put on my black clothes and walked out of my black door. That's Karen, who's an artist who lives in Oakland. Who am I? It's a fundamental question for everyone, of course, but for African Americans, it has particular resonance. Since our history in America is filled with grand contradictions, marginalization, and grotesque lies, African Americans have largely been left alone in the dark to grapple with the issues of who we are. Our shared experiences as people of African descent have been marked by an endless wave of mixed messages, leaving questions that lack finite answers. How do we declare our humanity? How do we begin to construct healthy environments for our lives, families, and communities in the face of chaos and confusion? The idea for Family Affair has been growing for years. It took nothing more than a simple conversation with a good friend to cement my resolve to assemble this collection. Like most upwardly mobile African Americans of our generation who came of age in the aftermath of the Civil Rights Movement, my friends and I consider ourselves representative of a new breed of brothers and sisters who are blessed with hard-won opportunities. Given that, imagine my surprise when my friend, who, by the way, is one of the most generous and pragmatic people that I know, used the term good hair when describing a guy she had recently met. Now, I knew the meaning of the expression, but I must say I was stunned by her casual use of a throwback reference that to me represents the dysfunction at the core of African American identity. Something about it confirmed that my generation was still haunted by the remnants of Black America's historical baggage, and I knew it was time for me to do my part to turn things around.
All right, let's hear it. Thank you, Gil. Kim?
All right. I will read from the introduction. Although you may know me as an actress and comedian, woo woo woo, I've always been inspired to stretch and grow beyond the stage and screen by empowering and inspiring others. I will be completely transparent with you. I have been on a wonderful personal journey in the last couple of years to find more purpose and passion, in capital letters. Of course, I have been blessed to have a very interesting, varied, and fulfilling showbiz career, and yes, there have been ups and downs, but I have managed to stay afloat and remain grateful even when work was scarce. However, you know how you get that feeling where there may be more out there, or shall I say more in there. Have you ever wondered if you're living up to your fullest human potential? That has nothing to do with what we do for a living, but everything to do with who we are in our spirit and our soul. So many of us think that we know what we do. It's true that some of us find great purpose in what we do. However, the best life alignment and balance happens when we are clear about who we are at our core, and that sets our life up to just be in the energy of the best lives, in our best lives at all times. In my personal quest, I have found that there was indeed more inside of me, and I wanted to share. I realized that I wanted to use my gifts more fully, and I explained the gifts earlier, so I'll leave people to the rest of the gifts. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
Let's see. When I was a kid, the things that scared me the most wasn't sharks or zombies. It was the sound of the garage door opening. We lived in San Francisco. One of the trivial houses was there, very common there. On a typical school night, my brother Jimmy and my sister Verda and I would be playing down in the finished basement, which was set up like a family room with couches and a television on it. Or we'd be upstairs by the fireplace in the living room listening to my mom singing. My favorite song was always Stormy Weather. No matter what we were doing, we always laughing and having a great time, being together. That's the way the family was there, supposed to be. And then we heard the familiar noise of the garage door jerking open. The fun was over. And what came next so many times. That's really it.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Yvette.
Calling women, calling all women, mothers, daughters, sisters, wives, aunts, nieces, girlfriends, and grandmothers. Wherever you are, calling you, urgent, come in, you women, come on in. My name is Yvette X, uptown artist. I am not a man, I am not white, I am not thin, and I am not young. But I write plays for the American theater featuring roles for leading women. Y'all have heard the statistics. It's pretty bleak. In the whole history of the American theater, no female playwright has ever been produced to the extent of any male playwright. And you can believe when things are hard for white women, they're doubly hard for black women. Why, at the rate things are going, women may not see equality in the American theater for another 100 years. That's what, like 200 years for me. So you may wonder, what gives Yvette X the determination, the courage, the audacity to write the plays for the American theater, to write the plays that she wants to write, the way that she wants to write them? On whose shoulders does she stand? Well, in order to find the answer to that question, we have to go back to black. And then I do a little.
I want all of you all to tell the audience how they can get your books. I know that Esselwan Bookstore is here, and they have numerous books, including, I know they have Todd's book. But why don't we have everybody to tell the audience how they can purchase your book?
You guys have any in mind? I have some in the store, yeah. Wherever bookstores are sold, except for the first one, Writing as a Tool of Empowerment, which you would have to order that directly through me. you could go to my website at Books by Gil, and certainly if you want that book, you can buy it. And then for the other titles, I mean, any place books are sold, you can just, if it's not in stock, they can order it.
I brought some of mine with me tonight.
Very
In
good,
case you were
very good.
interested. However, it's on Amazon for $2.99. I'm not going to be mad at
be
you for that. But you won't get a signature and a smile from me.
They'll be coming up in a minute.
They'll be coming up. You can also go to openyourgiftsbook.com if you wanted to buy it there. But I'm here.
Great.
Do it now.
Great.
Mine's
Todd,
back
yours
there in
back there.
Amazon.
Okay, and Yvette?
I sent a box of my books here, and the tracking person said that the delivery was delayed. So I don't have physical copies, but I'm prepared to sell the books tonight. And since I'm right here in Los Angeles with you, I can just mail it tomorrow or the next day when the box arrives. But I do have one with me that I could that I could sell you.
Great.
And sign. But of course, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, et cetera, you can order it.
And again, it's my pleasure to present to you our chair of the Los Angeles Cultural Affairs Committee, who will give us some remarks. As you know, this is a cultural affair, African American Heritage Month, and so we're very proud to have the chairwoman of that commission here with us tonight.
Can we give another round of applause for our authors for being with us tonight and for sharing your souls, because it's personal when you start writing about yourself. So thank you. I'm not going to keep you. I am a member of our Authors Study Club, and one of the things that I often try to do is make sure that we are reminded that when we've come together for Black History Month, which people often ask me, do we still need to do? And I go, of course. I love the deep dive. But one of the things that these authors have said today was that when I'm gone, you will see that I had something to say because I put it in writing. And I thought immediately, that's exactly what Carter G. Woodson did for us. He put it in writing. I mean, we speak his name, but we don't necessarily always tell everybody to go back and read his writings. And just as you have with the authors here, if you go back and look at some of those writings, you'll actually see they are stories. They're not just, you know, on April 5th, 1962, this happened. He took the time to actually ask family members and other people what their story was. If you go back and look at, if I'm not mistaken, the 1944 issue of the Journal of Negro History, one of the stories that he did was about the Civil War experience for African Americans, and he asked them what they did. And when you go back and you read it, it really is talking through somebody's life. So I close with the following. One of the themes for African American History Month this year is on the African American in the Civil War. And Carter G. Woodson's father, James Henry Woodson, was a slave. He was owned by the Strattons, but he was on loan to someone named Hudgens. And they got in an argument. And the man he was on loan to wanted to beat him. He didn't think that was a good idea. And he fought back. Then it occurred to him that maybe he needed to run home to his original plantation for protection. Now, I can tell you this because Carter G. Woodson wrote it down, and he wrote it down like this. And then when he got there, he realized that his master was not going to be on his side. And he thought, well, I guess I better get out of here because I just might not make it. And so he ran into the woods, and having heard that the Union soldiers were in the area, he understood that if he flagged them down with some sort of white cloth, they might stop for him. And he proceeded to do just that. They stopped for him. He explained that he was about to be beat and whipped and what was happening. And by the way, he was a very talented carpenter. And the Union soldiers said to him, will you show us where this plantation is? And so he led them to that plantation, where the Union soldiers, probably not as much for his benefit as their own, decided that they would then tie up this plantation owner and whip him so that he would know what it was like to be whipped, at which point James Henry Woodson signed up to stay with the Union soldiers, which he did. And I can only tell you this because the man who said, "Let us have Negro History Week," because he wrote it down. And if you do not think that is personal, as I have said before, I know I am related to him because he wrote about my great-grandfather. And had he not done it, I would never have known who my slave ancestors were. So you had a story to tell, and you told it tonight. Thank you. Each of you has one. Make sure you write it down, too.
With that, we have books that are available, and this is an opportunity to come up and talk to the authors and get your books assigned.